out of Gaza City, where the Israeli military began its ground offensive overnight. With more on this now, let's go to David Sussman in Israel. He's at the Jerusalem Post Diplomatic Convention, former IDF soldier, host of a popular television show in Israel, and also an Israeli tour guide. David, thanks for joining us. What's the latest you're hearing about this ground offensive underway now?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I haven't been so up in the news because I've been at this convention here where we had ambassadors from various countries, survivors from Hamas captivity who spoke, and also who is known as the son of Hamas, one of the Hamas leaders' son, also came to this conference. But from what I understand, this operation began in the early morning hours, and there are ground troops who have entered into Gaza City. We knew this was coming. We've been preparing for it. We've seen the escalation over the last several days, even the last couple of weeks, with the bombardment of certain buildings that were used in Gaza City by Hamas to collect intelligence on the movement of Israeli troops in the area. So once Israel deemed that enough of those tactical high positions on those buildings were no longer usable by Hamas, the troops have now entered into Gaza City. And from my understanding, there's some fierce fighting that's going on over there. Unfortunately, now all the sit-ins have evacuated. I assume that's due to the restraints that Hamas has put on them. But from the numbers that I've read, roughly about 350,000 civilians, residents of Gaza City have fled to safe zones that have been established for them. But 2/3 of the people are still there, and hopefully Israel will be able to eliminate the 2,000 to 3,000 Hamas fighters that are still holed up in that city, and we'll be able to free the hostages first and foremost. And those residents will be able to return to Gaza City, and hopefully all of Gaza will be free of this Hamas tyranny that they've been suffering for the last 20 years.
You know, David, with your background as a soldier, can you speak from a tactical or strategic point of view? And you were touching on this a bit, but just in plain language, the difference or the intent moving into a ground invasion as opposed to bombings or being more strategic in that way. What is the goal with having troops moving in on the ground?
Well, you know, we oftentimes talk about Israel's ability to target exact, precision missiles, smart bombs, they call them. And but those can only go so far. You really need to go into the areas. You need to sweep through the buildings. You need to locate the Hamas fighters, the terrorists, whatever you want to call them. And also you need to find the weapons manufacturing plants, the openings to the tunnels. And this can't be done solely by satellite imagery, drones that are flying above, capturing intelligence. This needs to be done with boots on the ground. So usually the final stage of any battle will be with the ground forces going in order to eliminate, every detail of Hamas's ability to attack Israel and really, when you think about it, the free world.
David, it's one thing to militarily punish Hamas, but doesn't there not come a point where you're humanitarianly just punishing the people of Gaza who live there?
Yeah, well, that's definitely not the intention. Obviously, there's going to be some type of collateral damage. There'll be a situation where people are going to be suffering from this war to various degrees. I think Israel's done a phenomenal job. I know the UN would like to think otherwise, but when you look at the UN and the 142 states that are members of the United Nations, most of them are not free democratic Western societies with the values that you and I share. And also with the amount of funding and influence that's coming from places like Qatar and Turkey and these radical Islamic ideologies, some of those poor states that can be influenced with a little bit of money and the corruption that we've seen can definitely be moved to the side of those that are against Israel. And I think that a lot of humanitarian aid, in fact, I know a lot of humanitarian aid has entered into the Gaza Strip, whether it's through, the airdrops, whether it's through the humanitarian corridors that Israel has established. In fact, I would even say that more food has been brought into Gaza in the last year than they had in before October 7th, 2023. It's been an unbelievable amount of aid, food, humanitarian aid that has entered the Gaza Strip in recent months for sure, but really throughout the entire war. I think there's been a lot of misinformation that's been given out there via the Hamas propaganda, and obviously the UN has put forth resolutions against Israel, but we need to see exactly who's voting in these resolutions, what states are compliant with that. You know, when you look at the Human Rights Council, I mentioned this another time, you literally have China, you have Cuba, you have Eritrea, you have nations that abuse the human rights of their citizens on a daily basis. These are not even partly free countries. These are not free at all. And they're sitting on the Human Rights Council, and they're the ones that are putting forth these resolutions against Israel. So I think when you really take a broader picture of everything that's happening there, if you really crunch the numbers, you'll see that there's a lot of aid that goes in. In fact, the reason why there's probably a surplus of this aid is that a lot of it is stolen by Hamas. It's sold on the black markets. They're funneling the money that they receive from it into this war machine, continuing this fight. I mean, we all, you know, obviously we fight, but we also pray that Hamas will just lay down their arms, free the hostages, and say, okay, we will not remain in a political position here in Gaza, in order that, you know, these people that supposedly they love and care about will be able to live freely and prosper and have an end to this war, and hopefully have a rebuilding process that's going to build Gaza as a place with a moral compass and a desire to live in peace with its neighbors, and particularly us here in Israel.
David Sussman, thank you for joining us at the last minute from Israel. We appreciate it. Would have loved to be able to talk to him more about what the son of Hamas had to say at that conference he's attending, but we are out of time on that. And obviously, we should point out that other human rights organizations take issue with some of what David said about access to the aid that's getting in there. So there are obviously different points of view about Israel's actions on that front.